Hello, my friends. This week I watched the first episode of an anime called Houseki no Kuni, loosely translated as Land of Jewels, though I suppose that the official English title is the Land of the Lustrous, but that's just a wrong translation. So B minus. But from the description of the show, most of us are going to immediately think of Steven Universe. I got this off of Anime News Network. Quote, in the distant future, a new life form called Houseki, gems, is born. The 28 gems must fight against the Tsukijin, or moon people, who want to attack them and turn them into decorations. So each gem is assigned a role, such as a fighter or a medic. Though she hopes to fight the moon people, Phos is a gem who is given no assignment until the gem's manager, Adamantine, asks her to edit a natural history magazine. So from this description, we obviously have a lot of magic, fighting gem ladies, and they live on Earth and they fight space women too. But while the setting seems similar, the execution and the story of Houseki no Kuni seems to be entirely different to me. So I wanted to talk about the really cool things that this show is doing so that it doesn't just get swept under the rug as an anime Steven Universe. Now, there is absolutely zero hate for Steven Universe in this video. I freaking love Steven Universe. I already made 2 videos on Steven Universe, and I'm just bringing that show up so that I can talk about how Houseki no Kuni is different but still awesome. So the first thing that I want to talk about is how Houseki no Kuni is obviously a 3D CG animated show. And in the anime community, that is normally a red flag. 3D anime usually gets a bad rap, at least when it's entirely 3D or has very awkward CG implemented. And for the most part, that's because CG has been used in the past to take the lazy way out to cut costs, and it generally looks really bad. We're not talking anything on the level of a Disney Pixar or a DreamWorks picture when we're talking about Japanese TV anime made with entirely 3D animation. But personally, I think that it's a really exciting new style of doing anime that I think is finally starting to come into its own. I remember watching Knights of Sidonia a while back, and I really enjoyed that show. I watched all the way through both of the seasons. And Knights of Sidonia had a lot of issues as well that is pretty common for other entirely 3D animated anime. The character models were usually very stiff, expressions were almost nowhere to be found most of the time, or at least when they were making expressions for their characters' faces, they weren't very expressive at all. And ultimately, that very expressive emotionality of anime is one of the main draws for the medium. Houseki no Kuni, on the other hand, has found a way to actually create this expressiveness. Characters move freely and dynamically with good timing to the words that are being spoken, as well as having actual facial expression, as well as having the whimsical presence of constantly flowing, bejeweled hair. Now, we're used to having very unnatural hair colors in anime as a very common or normal device used to help distinguish between different characters. But in this show's case, they're actually using the hair to represent the kind of gem that the person is supposed to be. In Steven Universe, the gem characters aren't really based off of gems. The gems are there for the aesthetic of the idea of a gem. But really, whether you're a garnet or a pearl or amethyst or a diamond or whatever it is, has no real role in determining the characteristics of the gems that they're associated with, of the characters they're associated with. In Houseki no Kuni, they've taken an approach that is very similar to a show called Seikon no Quasar, in that in Seikon no Quasar, they had magic systems based off of all of the elements on the periodic table. So rather than doing the typical fire, water, earth, air kind of elemental sense. They were actually magically controlling copper or aluminum or gold or uranium or titanium, and the actual properties of the actual elements in our world played a role in determining the character's powers and what they would be able to accomplish with those things. For Houseki no Kuni, they've done the same with gems. They've taken the characteristics of different kinds of gemstones, its brittleness, its luster, what it does in the environment and how it interacts with other elements or other materials to essentially establish personalities for these characters, to create dramatic stakes and dramatic dynamics between its characters. And personally, I find that to be extremely interesting. Something that I hear a lot when talking about action anime with my friends is the idea that whatever the power is, whatever the superhero rules or magic or anything that applies, is always made better when it has a system, when it has clear rules that it operates on, and is able to draw from that rule set stable and logical dynamic that characters have to deal with. But in Houseki no Kuni, the characters themselves are dealing with that rule set because they exist by it. So these two cool aspects that I've mentioned are essentially combining for me to create what I think is going to at least be a very interesting entry into the medium that we call anime. Now, when you watch the first episode, probably the first thing that you're going to think is that their setting is very simple. In fact, probably too simple. It's mostly just a large open grass field. And I honestly don't expect this to change very much. However, I think because they've chosen such a plain setting to operate on, they're actually able to accomplish that significantly more fluid and expressive animation with the characters that I mentioned earlier. The actual systems defining this world are already extremely clear and creating dramatic stakes. And so I have a high deal of faith that this show has a direction that it can be taken. Even if it's just as sakuga, as an art piece for an understanding into future works of how to create the kind of 3D animation that will create the sense of the anime genre or the subjective feeling of watching anime. This show is taking a far stride in that direction in a way that hasn't been done by any other show yet, at least in my opinion. So while I don't have any actual philosophical idea that I can extrapolate from it, obviously it's just the first episode, and if it's not your cup of tea, fine by me. You're not going to hurt my feelings by not liking the thing that I think looks cool. But hopefully, at the end of this anime season, you'll be seeing an actual formal analysis of this show come up on my channel. So I hope you'll take a look at it and decide for yourself. Feel free to send me messages to talk to me about how this show is going and what you think about it. But overall, I just don't want this show to be overlooked merely for being 3D or merely for having a very similar premise to Steven Universe. Because from just the first episode, I can tell that it's doing something very interesting and something that's worthwhile to pay attention to, even if the show itself doesn't turn out to be some great entry or some instant classic of the anime medium. Sorry for having a short impromptu video like this, but from what I imagine, chances are this show isn't going to be all that popular or the topic of much discussion over this anime season. So I wanted to make my channel known as a place where discussion about this show is absolutely welcome, and I hope to participate in that discussion as much as possible as well. But I'm going to wrap it up here, so as always, thank you for watching. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel. I will be having an actual philosophical analysis ready for next Saturday. I don't pay anyone to advertise this channel, so the only way that I can grow is with your help. So thanks for watching, and as always, stay true.